I have about 6 GMs in the NFL that I text, and, Tom Telesco is my buddy with the Chargers. We'll go to dinner, and I don't give away any of the secrets, but once the draft's over, I think it's okay to say Chris Ballard liked Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor and Jacob Eason, and he landed all of them, and I knew that. So when I watched the draft, and they had Pittman and Jonathan Taylor, I'm like, oh, my God. He's going to get both these guys. And I went crazy on Instagram, and Chris Ballard entering his 4th season. So, now I can share stuff now that the draft is over. Let's talk about Pittman. You had asked me we had talked about Pittman or texted about Pittman. This was somebody, Chris, you really liked, and you got him. That must have been a great feeling for you.
Well, thanks for having me on.
You bet.
First. Hi, Joy. How you doing? Every time I'd listen to you, so I've been home, the last, month and a half.
Yeah.
And so I'm listening to your show, and every time you'd bring up Pittman, I'm cringing, going, are you freaking kidding me? He's pumping this guy up. And
he's a great player, Chris. You know what I liked about him? Freshman year he came to USC. He played, and he was a dominant special teams player. And I thought, God, this kid is 18 years old. He walks into the program. I think he's their best special teams player. Did you go look at that film?
We saw it all. So we always do. And our scouts do a great job going back and looking. And look, guys, that I'll never forget when we drafted Charles Tillman, when I was early in my career in Chicago. And
yeah.
He was a great teams player right away. Guys that, football players that, they just find a way to produce no matter what role you ask them to play in. And, that's the one thing with Michael is every year you saw him get better. You saw him dominate on teams early in his career. You saw him go through a multitude of different quarterbacks and still produce at wideout. I think it's almost overlooked. Everybody says, well, he didn't have 1,000 yards his junior year, but I think he averaged over 17 yards a catch. We feel very fortunate to get him and think he's going to be a great addition to our team. An
NFC general manager, after you drafted Jonathan Taylor, texted me and said, Ballard is killing this. I said before, I don't see a huge gap. Jonathan Taylor and Saquon Barkley. I think Jonathan's feet A+, his speed A+. So I think Barkley's great. So that's not a knock on Saquon Barkley. People do wonder if Jonathan Taylor can catch it much. Let's talk about him, and is that a legitimate criticism?
It's the way they used him. We thought. When you break down all his catches from this year and how we're going to use him in the pass game, look, there might be 3 or 4 backs, and you're talking Kamara, you're talking McCaffrey, now the kid that Kansas City drafted that can really be true mismatches in the passing game. But the rest of them, Frank brought this point up to me because I kept asking questions about how we're going to use on third down, and especially even on early downs, how we're going to use it. Because, Chris, most of the balls that backs catch, swings, check downs, and spring game, that's it. And that's how we'll use our backs. And we think Jonathan's going to be very good at that. Look, we think Marlon Mack's good at it.
Yeah.
So now the ability to have 2 backs that both can create explosive plays, both in the run game and in the passing game, is really going to help.
You've had, really, if you go back to your career in Kansas City, you drafted Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. You got Darius Leonard and Quentin Nelson, Malik Hooker, now Pittman, Taylor. Jacob Eason's an interesting prospect, and I want to talk about him, is that Eason, I grew up in the Northwest, and so I've seen a lot of Eason. I probably watched 10 games a year that were on TV. Strong arm. I did think sometimes when defenses made shifts in the second half, he could struggle, but he didn't throw to NFL wide receivers. He had to throw a lot of guys open at Washington last year. So I think he's a little bit of a project, but if I said to you, he could start in the following year, not this year, does he project to be that good early enough?
Well, I've kind of pumped the brakes on the starting everybody bringing out that narrative just from the plain fact that he's got work to do. He's really been a one-year starter in college, and he's got a lot of work to do. And Jacob knows that. But we feel good about the situation we're putting him into. We feel good putting him behind Phillip and Jacoby, letting him compete and get better and grow with Frank and, his leadership and his ability to coach quarterback. So, look, we think Jacob's got a lot of talent, but he's got a ways to go, and he knows that. He knows he's got a lot of work to put in.
Chris Ballard joining us, Colts GM. So I've always had this, I always push back on this. For years and years, I was told, you just draft the best player available. And the analogy I always use, if I went to the store and my wife said, we need milk, cereal, and eggs, and I came back with a rake, and I said, well, it was 75% off. She'd be like, well, that's not what we need. And so you know what I mean? So I'm always like, yeah, I get best player available if you're in a total rebuilding situation. But the Chargers needed a franchise quarterback and a linebacker. You needed a number 2 wide receiver. And you also, I believe, needed to be a little bit more dynamic offensively. So where is the best guy available? And just he's really, really good and he fits a need. How do you balance that?
Well, look, you don't want to, on draft day, and I learned this a long time ago, don't ever pass up what you think is a great player. If you think the guy is a unique, special talent, I don't care what position he is. I brought up when we talked about Quentin Nelson, they asked me, he goes, well, great player versus need. And it just happened. They said, well, you can't take a guard at 6. And I said, well, why not? I said, this guy's a unique talent. That's who we're taking. We're taking unique talent. So you never pass up a unique talent. And then number 2, when it comes need versus best player, well, if the guy's not a unique talent and it's even, then you're going to take the need. Our whole vision this offseason was to create – look, we needed to add more what we thought could be star players.
Yes.
And, that's where Buckner came into play. When we got into to add some guys with some unique traits offensively to help, our offense create more explosive plays. That's where Pittman and that's where Taylor came into play.
Phillip Rivers, when he has protection, he's only a year removed from having a very good year. I think sometimes, recency bias. He struggled last year. But if you go 2 years ago, he was very good. In the end, the knock on him is, some interceptions you don't love. He's not terribly athletic anymore, if he ever was. What was the day you made the decision to bring Phillip in? Do you remember it, the discussions you were having?
Yeah, we had discussions internally, all through when we started we do a deep evaluation of our own team, which is those are difficult discussions internally, because it's players that you like, but, do we need to try to improve in these positions? And, Frank and Nick, our offensive coordinator, both had exposure and history with Phillip. And you got a chance, a guy that knows the offense. They know what he's going to bring to our football team. And look, we played against him early in the season. We played against him week 1 and he played really well against us. And, and when you watch the one thing about Phillip that I think is underappreciated, like he doesn't worry about his stats. He's playing to win. And there's some of those interceptions, they got to come down and he knows it. But Phillip's going to play to win. He's not going to play to protect himself. There's times in games where he's going to make throws that other people won't even try when they're down in the game, but he's trying to create a big play. So we think we can have that. We think we can protect him. We think we're going to be able to run the ball with him and do some things to help Phillip out. And just his presence and experience and things that are you don't always see on the field, that he's going to bring to an organization, we thought we needed.
Chris Ballard was the former Bears director of scouting. Then he went to the Chiefs and ran their football operations. Now his 4th year as the Colts general manager. Was voted the executive of the year a couple of years ago by the Pro Football Writers Association. He's joining us here on The Herd. So a lot of people worried about the whole virtual nature of it. But we had said the XFL did a virtual draft. The WNBA did a pretty good job. I thought it looked great. I got to be honest with you. I love seeing kids with their families. I loved it. I thought it was incredibly emotional. I know we'll go back to the other way, but were you pleasantly surprised by how fairly seamless. The draft came off, or was there a lot of little issues behind the scenes?
I would say the little issues popped up before we started. Just everybody getting comfortable with the technology that we were using. People are scared of the unknown, Colin.
Yeah.
I mean, you know how that is. I mean, people are scared. Like, when you try to change anything, they're scared of the unknown. They're scared of looking stupid in front of the world. Unfortunately, for me, I've done it enough times where it doesn't bother me, anymore. You're going to make, things aren't always going to go the way you planned. And I think that's what, had people worried about, what we were getting into. But look, give the league, give the NFL credit. They had a vision of how they wanted this thing to look, and they pulled it off. And, it was the special – look, to be able to do this with our families is really special. I think it humanized the NFL.
Yes.
For a lot of our fans. I mean, I think they look at our league differently, knowing that, look, we do have families, we do have children, and I tell our group all the time, every decision we make affects not only our organization, but our coaches' families, our families, everybody in our organization's families. And I think it was good for them to be a part of it, and good for our country to be able to see that there is another side to this.
Yeah, I think your perfect word. It really humanized the league. It really did. I found myself. It's just crazy how much fun I had watching it. I think I watched more of and I've loved it forever, but I don't think I turned it off more than 5 minutes or missed 5 minutes. I sat eating sandwiches, potato chips, and Coronas, and watching the draft and cheering people on. That's what I did for 3-4 days.
Hey, there's nothing better than when your sons sit behind you and are questioning every move you make. Like, Dad, what are you going to take this guy here? No, I'm not. Well, why not? I don't understand.
That is great. Chris, congrats to you and the Colts. Knocked it out of the park as always, and we'll talk soon.